Hi, welcome to my channel. I'm VolleyTank. For those of you returning, it's been a while since my last video, and I do apologize for that. I've had a lot going on. I've moved. As you can see, the background's a little different. My wife had a baby, and I passed my RHCSA, which I'm kind of proud of. Hopefully, I can keep doing regular releases going forward. I do intend to. For this video, we're going to pick back up where we left off. It's finally time to install Apache Webserver and get it secured with a certificate. I'm also going to go over NginX or NginX, as some may call it. We're going to do reverse web proxying and stuff, so make sure not to follow along at first. Watch the whole video if you don't understand a lot of these technologies, because I'm going to go over like different scenarios where you might use one thing versus another. Some prerequisites for this is if you're using a home network, or if you have a NATed network, you need to forward ports 80 and 443 to your web server on your gateway. So 80 is HTTP and 443 is HTTPS. You'll also need a domain name that resolves to your web server for the purposes of Let's Encrypt certificates. One thing I do want to go over before we get started is a bug that was giving me trouble when I was booting. If you've been following along, then it's likely affecting you as well. If you have a Lux encrypted container and you have /var on a separate volume from root, then your system might not boot. It's a Plymouth bug. I'll have a link in the description below on what to do if this affects you. But without further ado, let's jump into it. Let's go ahead and start the server up here. By the way, I'm using Debian now instead of Fedora. I switched. Debian's my preferred distro. So this is where it would hang right here when I was asking for the password. It either wouldn't get to this, or once you typed in the password, it just wouldn't boot from there. It would just kind of stop. It was kind of intermittent too. Alright, so we'll go ahead and SSH over Rhel 8. LS block, you can see we have the same disk, like I haven't touched anything. Let's make sure our IP address is correct. Okay, so that's what I have forwarded in my gateway for the goods. Alright, so we can just hop right into this. We'll go ahead and get to root. I want to be root because we're gonna be using sudo a lot if we're not root, so I'm just gonna be root. We'll just go ahead and do an update. Wait for this to get finished. Make sure we have the most up-to-date stuff. I believe that we do. We're just going to do it again. Alrighty, looks good. We'll go ahead and clear that. We'll do a DNF install HTTPD, which is Apache. Hit yes. In Debian or Ubuntu, it would be called Apache, but for some reason in Red Hat, they call it HTTPD. Alright, so now that's done, we're going to go ahead and we're going to systemctl enable. And one thing is, a lot of guides will tell you to enable it and then a separate command to start it, but if you just do -- now and then the service, so what this will do is enable it and start it all in one command. No need to do anything else, right? So we'll do systemctl status HTTPD. We'll see that it's running on port 80. So what this means is that in theory, we should be able to go to HTTP Rhel 8 and get to it, but we can't. So it says it can't establish a connection to the server. In Ubuntu or Debian, this would just work right out of the box. You just install it and you'd be like good to go. But in Red Hat, you have to open the firewall. We're going to do this by doing firewall command. We do -- zone equals public. That's just what we use for everything. Permanent. And then we'll do add service equals HTTP. Okay, so what this says is, we're using the firewall command, we're picking our zone, we're making it permanent, so we're writing it to the file. We can list, and you'll see that it's not in there. So if you use the permanent switch, it's not going to apply immediately. If you don't use the permanent switch, it will apply immediately, but if you ever reload the firewall or reboot or something, it'll go away. So what we have to do now, reload firewall. So you can actually just type this command in with permanent and then type it in with not permanent, and that would have you running, right? But this way we can reload, and we know that if list all comes back correct, then when we reboot, everything's going to be fine. So we can see HTTP. We will go ahead and HTTP to Rhel 8, and in theory, our domain name should work as well. All right, so we got the Linux test page. Nice. So what we're going to do, clear the screen. All right, so what we're going to do now is we'll go into our HTTPD configurations. We go in conf. This is our main conf right here. It has things like what port we're listening on. Nothing super important in here. What we're more concerned is going to be conf.d. We're going to make volleytank.com.conf. It has to have .conf at the end or it's not going to work. We're going to make a virtual host here. Just a quick little virtual host, port 80, volleytank.com. This is going to be for the purposes of installing our cert. we'll go ahead and restart HTTPD. Just make sure we're still accessible. I mean, you know, we're golden. So I mean, if you just wanted a basic web server that doesn't need a certificate, you know, you're done here. You just install it and you're pretty much good to go. You don't even have to do the virtual host. That's some more advanced techniques, I guess you could say. Like you could have different virtual hosts, have them basically serve different web pages, which we're going to show. I'm going to do that with NginX. We're going to show you how to do that with NginX, as some may call it. What we're going to do now is we want to set up the EPEL, right? So we have to install extra packages for Enterprise Linux. We're going to go ahead and copy this. This command can take a while, by the way. But after that's done, we're going to run this little command to install the EPEL, which the extra packages for Enterprise Linux are going to give us our certbot. All right, so we're enabled, almost there. All right, so we're just going to go ahead and yum install. You can also DNF install. Those two commands are interchangeable. We'll click yes. And then we want to do a DNF update. Make sure we have all the package listings from the EPEL. Another thing that I like about Debian and Ubuntu is I can just install certbot, right? I don't have to install the EPEL or anything like that. It's just in the repos. Things just work. But I do like SELinux actually. I'm a big fan of it, and I'm a big fan of DNF and yum. You know, I think their output's a lot better than apt. All right, so we're done with there. Go ahead and clear. What we can do now is we should be able to install our certbot, which is our Let's Encrypt. We're gonna get Python 3 certbot Apache. We're going to get mod SSL, which is the Apache module for SSL. Hit yes on that. All right, and we're completed. We'll go ahead and clear that. You know, in theory, you would be able to get to HTTPS here, but we can't. So just like we did before, if we can do history and we can grep for firewall. So we're going to have to add, or we'll open the port for HTTPS as well. And then a little trick you can do if you want to run, say, like reload, right? We don't want to have to copy that or type it out. We can just do bang 248, which is this number right here beside it. That'll run that command. Neat little trick. All right, so now that we got that up, we're going to do a systemctl restart HTTPD. And now we're running on port 443 and port 80. So we should be able to, let's do HTTPS. All right, so now we have HTTPS. Go to advanced, accept the risk. We have our Linux test page here, powered by Apache. And we have it here as well. So this is using a self-signed certificate, so it's not going to say that it's secure, but we're going to make it secure, right? So what we're going to do here is we're going to go over to our configs, httpd conf.d. I'm actually going to cd into this directory to make it a little easier to work out of. I am going to change SSL to .conf to ssl.conf.back. And what that's going to do is disable it. So if we cat this is what got installed when we downloaded mod SSL. It's just a basic virtual host for, it's like a default 443. For HTTPS. We'll go ahead and clear the screen now. So we want to do our Let's Encrypt stuff, right? So we're going to do certbot -- Apache. It's telling us that we're using Apache. We're going to do -d for domain, and we're going to do volleytank.com. So this is why you have to have a domain that links back to the server, right? Because certbot's going to check that and make sure it's the same server. That's how they verify you for the certificate, right? Go ahead and do this. It's going to ask for an email address. We'll just do test@volleytank.com. Do we agree? Yes. We want to give out our email address? No. It doesn't really matter because that's not a real email address, but we're not going to do it anyways. And this is also why we wanted to make our configuration file volleytank.com.conf, because when we specify this, Apache is going to look for that, right? It requested a certificate from volleytank.com. We received the certificate. Here's our certificate. Here's the key. Tells us when it expires, all that good stuff, and it's actually deploying it to it. So if we do, we're in conf.d, right? Yeah. It's showing here, it added this rewrite rule. So if we try to go to HTTP, it's going to rewrite us to HTTPS. If we go to volleytank.com-l, so this is now our virtual host for 443, and we'll, see if it works, right? let's go over here. We'll just go to http.volleytank.com. All right, so you know, that didn't work. So we're gonna go ahead and troubleshoot real quick. What we're going to do first of all is just restart HTTPD, because it's likely that the certbot script didn't do that. And here is our secured page, right? So that's all it was. We just need to restart it. But here's our, we're securely connected to the site. You can view the certificate. And also, since it has that rewrite stuff in it, right? We go to just HTTP. It'll redirect us to HTTPS. So now everything's HTTPS basically. You know, if you were just here to set up Apache, you know, you can kind of stop here. Towards the end of the video, we're going to go over auto-renewing your certificate, so you can go ahead and skip to that. I should have a section down there. So what we're going to do is start setting up NginX for a reverse web proxy, NginX as some may call it. And some situations where you might want to do this is if you don't want to have a certificate for every host on your system, or if you can't because, you know, volleytank.com can't resolve back to every server that I have. So I would run a reverse web proxy, and then any other servers that I have, I can have the reverse web proxy point to those and encrypt the traffic. So we're going to go ahead and do some configuration changes here. So I'm going to do an ls. We're going to move volleytank.com.conf to .back. We're going to move volleytank.com to .back. So this is essentially going to take off all these configurations, right? And we also, let's go back one. We're going to go into our HTTP down here, and at the bottom, it puts in this module here. So it's saying if we have the SSL module, then it's going to listen on 443. Well, we don't want it to do that, right? So basically, we want to do systemctl restart HTTPD. We'll set, I mean, we're basically turning this back to the default configuration. All right, so we can see that it's still trying to redirect us. We go over here to Rhel 8. You can see we got our test page, so going to open a new window here, do it again. So sometimes your DNS cache or something may interfere during this process. So if you ever think something should be working and it's not, you know, close your browser, open it up again. That's one reason we're working in private browsing, because I can just close the private browser, open it up, but I don't have to mess with my browser. So now we're back to like basically default. Go ahead and clear. And one thing I'm going to show you is if you wanted, because if we install NginX and we want it to run on port 80, we can't have Apache also running on port 80, right? There's some cool things here. We're going to do SE manage port list, and then we're going to grep for HTTP. And this will show you right here everything that HTTP can run on, what it's allowed to run on by default. But we're going to make something not default, right? So let's go into HTTP. I'm just going to show you, this is kind of how I'm going to help you work through if you have any SELinux problems. So we'll go into our main configuration file where we are listening on port 80. So we're going to change this to 780. So we'll go ahead and systemctl restart HTTPD. Oh, so that didn't work. It won't even do it. So let's check our journal, see what's going on, right? SELinux is preventing HTTP from name bind access on PHP socket port. So it tells you right here exactly what to do. So it's saying SE manage port, add type, port type, which would be in our case HTTP port T. The port or the protocol, which is TCP, and then 780. So I'm going to show you how to kind of figure this out if it didn't tell you. One way you can do is you can go to the audit log, because this is everything that SELinux is doing, and we will pipe that into audit2y, and this is one place you can come to find a lot of stuff. These aren't actually correct. That's not what is causing it. It's because of the port, but we can go to man se manage dash port, and then it'll show us like commands for that, and it actually gives us an example here. Se manage port, so this is to allow Apache to listen on a TCP port. That's not the standard. Go ahead and get out of there, and we'll just copy this, and we're going to do 780, right? So we're just allowing this basically. Then we can start HTTPD, and it worked. So we're now bind on 780. All right, so if you remember, you know, we're not going to be able to access this through a web browser through port 780 because of the firewall, right? We'll go ahead and history, grep, fire. Go ahead and grab this. This isn't exactly right because 780 isn't service port. It's non-standard. So we're going to have to do add port equals to 780. -TCP, and then you could, you know, make a separate one for UDP. We'll do bang 265 like we did earlier to reload that, and we can do bang 249. Get our list. So here's our new port. So in theory, should be able to go to Rhel 8-7080. And it works. Now, we can't do that on volleytank.com because from the outside world, port 7080 isn't open. So I could open port 7080 and send it over to here. I could even open port 80 and forward it to 780 and use it like a normal web server, but that's not what we're here to do. What we're going to do is set up NginX for our reverse web proxy needs. So we're going to go DNF install NginX. We'll just hit yes on that and let it install all this stuff. I actually prefer using NginX rather than Apache, but you know, it's really personal preference. Both of them have their advantages and disadvantages. We'll go ahead and clear the screen here. All right, so we want to systemctl enable -- now NginX. It's gonna enable it and start it, right? So now we can do a status. See, all is good, it started. Go ahead and run a netstat tanp. All right, we can see it's running on port 80. So we should be able to do Rhel. It's Rhel 8. All right, so now we have our NginX welcome page, which is different from our Apache welcome page. So, you know, these are running kind of side by side. And then if we do volleytank.com, it's going to go to our NginX because we have port 80 forwarded from the outside world. So our outside world is seeing NginX, where our inside world can reach Apache through port 7080. Also NginX if we just go to port 80. As you'd expect, HTTPS isn't going to work. We're not worried about that for right now. What we want to do is to get this web proxying, right? So we're going to clear the screen. We're going to go over to our NginX configuration file, and I'll just go ahead and cat this for you so you can see kind of the basic configurations. They have some things in here which you know may or may not want to change, but for our purposes, we're going to mess with confd. We're going to do the same thing we did on Apache, but obviously our configurations are a little different. Copy my host over here. You know, this is just saying listen on 80. Server name is volleytank.com, and we're going to redirect that to localhost 8080, which, you know, that's not where our server is. Our server is on 7080, right? Moving a little too fast here. All right, so we'll do that. We'll go ahead and restart NginX. And we can see that, you know, everything's working fine. It started up. Go ahead and clear the screen. In theory, if we go to volleytank.com, you know, it should redirect to the Apache server. If we look at still going to NginX, that's not exactly working. We can open up Conquer to have another web browser to test. Go to volleytank.com, we're going to get a 502 bad gateway, right? So, man, that didn't work. What's going on, right? We'll go ahead and close out of that. So we can also do it from here, right? volleytank.com. So we can crawl from here. We can see that we get a 502 bad gateway. So something's wrong, right? And I know what is wrong, but we'll check our audit log because SELinux is always an issue. So you can read it. You can read the audit log like this. You can see we have something for 7080. This isn't extremely readable. So we're going to go ahead and send that to audit2y. So now we can see that it wasn't working. You know, it was denied for NginX at 7080. It was caused by one of the following booleans were set incorrectly. The one that you would want to use, this one's probably the best, is network relay. It's the least intrusive, I guess you could say. Go ahead and clear. We'll put that in, and then curl. That worked, right? We'll go ahead and go over here and see if we can get it on here. So it's not going to work because you remember what I was telling you about the DNS thing. We're going to go ahead and just close this. We'll open another one. All right, so there's that. So if we'll go to Rhel 8, we want to do HTTP Rhel 8, else it'll search. And we can do Rhel 8 7080. So on 7080, we have our Red Hat Enterprise Linux test page for Apache. If we go to Rhel 8, we're greeted by NginX, right? But if we go to volleytank.com, it's being handled by NginX, but it's redirecting it to 780. When you're accessing the domain name, it's actually accessing this, but it's transparent to the user, right? So that's how you run a reverse web proxy. So you could have, you know, multiple different things. I could send this through to another website if I wanted to. All right, so an application of this could be, go to NginX and we go to our conf.d. We see volleytank.conf. So let's say you had another server that was like a storage server or something. You're running Nextcloud right on top of that because it had Samba. Then you could make another one of these called like cloud.volleytank.com. And then you would proxy pass to that server. So yeah, you can do another server. It doesn't have to be localhost. You can do a completely different server. You could really do any website. You could proxy to anything if you wanted to. And then these are just, you know, other settings. So what we're going to do now is set up Let's Encrypt for this. The first thing we're going to want to do is install the Python 3 certbot NginX script. So this is how we will secure our NginX. It's just like, we're going to do it just like we did Apache, right? Okay, so what we want to do here, just the same, right? Except this time we're going to say NginX. And then we're going to go -d volleytank.com, just like we did before. And it already knows we have a certificate for this, so instead of getting another one, which we could do if we wanted to, we're going to attempt to reinstall the certificate by hitting 1. So saying that it's successfully deployed, we'll go ahead and systemctl restart NginX. So now we should be able to go to volleytank.com and it will redirect us to a secured version of this web page that's running Apache. But see, this is installed in NginX, not Apache. So if we go over to here, we still have our NginX server, which is, you know, not secured. I don't know if we can secure it. Well, we do have the ability to, but it's not secured because it's a different name. But we're just going to go back to, and then if we go to this, which is our Apache, see here it's not secured. There's no certificate associated with this. It's being secured through NginX right here. So that's one way that you might want to use NginX as a reverse web proxy. If you have multiple different services, like let's say you have, you know, Proxmox, Nextcloud, your own web server, and you're all running this from home, you know, you don't want to manage certificates for each and every one if you don't have to. So you would just open a reverse web proxy server. You'd maintain a certificate for just your reverse web proxy, and then it's going to secure everything behind it from, you know, the outside world. So while I was editing this video, I noticed there was something I should have touched on that I didn't, and that's how to leverage your location usage in NginX. So what I've already done here, we'll go to conf.d. I'll go in here. So I've set up some locations. So I've changed our Apache to /Apache. And sometimes you kind of have to rewrite it. Sometimes you don't. And you can do this for anything. It doesn't have to be localhost. This is what I was talking about. So we're going to do location /example is going to redirect to example.com, which if we just go to example.com, this is what we're greeted with. If we just go to volleytank.com and we don't use a slash, it's going to be handled by the default in this situation. And you could add another one if you wanted to. You could just add location / and that would be the root, right? Just like it was before. So we'll go to volleytank.com. We can see that we have our NginX page that we're greeted with because we didn't use a slash. And if we go over here and we type Apache, it's going to take us to our Apache page. See, this is where it goes through to here. Just to show you that we can kind of use it on anything, we can go to example.com and it's going to redirect us to example, but you know, it's going to say volleytank.com /example up here. And you know, if you click on the links, it's going to take you there. So I just wanted to kind of show you that because that's like one of the big benefits of using NginX over Apache. You might be able to do that on Apache. I'm not sure actually, but it's so trivial to do it in NginX, and that's one of the reasons I use it. You can make everything seamless. So now we would want to, you know, what do we do for renewals? Because, you know, that certificate's going to expire eventually, right? Like if we go over here, go to more information, it'll tell us when it expires, November the 30th. That's not too far, you know, that's a couple of months. And that's, you know, Let's Encrypt certificates are like that. They don't last very long. They're also free. So now we're going to set it up so we can auto renew the certificate, which is good so that, you know, it's hands off. We can do this, which is going to fail. Since we did it before, we need to specify. If you just do one or the other, you're not going to have to specify NginX. But since we did it on Apache and then NginX, we have to specify which one it is, because it's going to try. I believe this is trying to do it with Apache, but we need to set it up so that it runs regularly so that it can update. And if we do If we just do it without the dry run, it's going to tell us that, you know, the certificate's not due for renewal. So it's not going to renew it if it doesn't need to be renewed. We can go to the certbot documentation here, because there's like a certain way that they say that they want this done. They want you to use this command. Go ahead and put this. So what this is going to do is going to input into our cron tab, which we can find here. It puts this in here, and basically what it says is, you know, 0 hours, 0 minute, and it's going to run at 12 every day. So 12 a.m., 12 p.m., or, you know, 12 or 24. So this creates a random time to sleep so that, you know, not everyone's hammering their servers exactly at 12 every day. So you could just have certbot renew in here on its own at another random part of the day, like say 5 a.m. or something, and it would do just the same as this basically. The reason we do it twice is to lower the chances of someone accessing our website and the certificate being expired. It's just to hit it more often. And basically, you know, that's all you have to do. This is how we set up our web server and reverse web proxy through. You know, I hope this was insightful, not only different kind of web server configurations, but also help you understand kind of how SELinux works and some of the ways you might look to resolve issues. And also, you know, a good one is you can always go set enforce 0 and then get enforce, and it'll be permissive. SELinux will be permissive, so SELinux won't stop anything. So if you're ever having an issue, you can just set enforce to 0 real fast. See if it works. If it works, then it's a problem with SELinux, and you know to look there. If not, you know, look elsewhere. And then you can just set enforce back to 1, and then, you know, we're enforcing again. And when you're in permissive mode, everything's going to get logged. It just won't stop anything. It'll like warn you, I guess. I hope this has been insightful, and then, you know, next video I think we'll set up an iPXE server. We'll run through that whole thing, you know, because we have to set up to do it properly. We have to set up TFTP. We have to set up some stuff in our DHCP server. We have to set up the iPXE server itself, and then we also have to set up NFS, and that's all going to run from this server. I'm going to do it all on this server. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, if you think I missed something, if you know, feel free to comment below, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can on that. Thanks for watching.